What if I told you there are real cases in America so strange, so haunting, that even the investigators who work them still can't sleep at night? Children vanishing without a sound, families disappearing as if the earth swallowed them whole, and recordings that capture voices no one can explain. These are the top 5 unexplained cases that still haunt investigators. And trust me, you won't believe how deep this mystery goes. If you want to feel the chill of every unanswered question, stay with me until the end. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe right now and drop a comment with your own theory, because maybe the next mystery we cover could be one you've been thinking about all along. In every corner of America there are mysteries buried so deep that even decades later they whisper in the dark. These are not just stories, they are cases that bleed into the nightmares of the investigators who swore to solve them. Tonight, we walk through the shadows of 5 of the most unexplained cases that still linger like smoke in the cold night air. A mother in Indiana still leaves the porch light on every evening for her missing son, who vanished on a warm summer night in 1984. He was just steps from his home, neighbors heard nothing, no one saw anything, and yet he was gone. Detectives pulled every string, checked every door, followed every rumor. Nothing. 39 years later, his mother still sets the table for one more, as if he might walk back through that door. Then there is the strange case from the deserts of New Mexico, where a family of 4 disappeared during a road trip in 1998. Their car was found abandoned on a dirt road, doors unlocked, belongings scattered like someone had left in a hurry. There were no tracks in the sand, no signs of struggle, and no trace of where they went. Investigators still speak in hushed tones about the eerie silence at that scene, the way the wind seemed to swallow every clue. In the rolling woods of Pennsylvania, a young college student left a party one autumn night and never returned. His phone pinged once from the edge of a forest trail, then went dark. Search dogs tracked his scent to a creek but found nothing more. Friends still walk that trail every year, leaving flowers and hoping someone will finally speak the truth. The case files sit heavy on the shelves of the local sheriff's office, a reminder of questions that never find answers. In Seattle, the chilling story of a man who called 911 claiming someone was inside his home. Dispatchers heard the fear in his voice as he whispered, saying footsteps were moving closer. Officers arrived minutes later, but the man was gone. The door was locked from the inside, no forced entry, no signs of a struggle. The phone was left on the floor, still connected to the call. The recording remains one of the most unsettling pieces of evidence detectives ever heard. And then there is the one case that seems to haunt every investigator who touches it. A small town in Kentucky where several children vanished over the span of 20 years, each disappearance happening on the same stretch of road, always on a Sunday evening, always after dusk. Parents keep their kids inside now, but the fear still lingers. Some believe there's someone out there who knows the pattern, someone who is still watching and waiting. The files are thick, the theories endless, but the truth has never been pulled into the light. Each case remains a wound that never closes, each detail a thread that leads nowhere. What ties them together is the silence, the missing answers, and the haunting thought that someone, somewhere, might still hold the key. And as the years slip by, the question grows heavier, pressing on those who have dedicated their lives to finding the truth. Because when the clock hits midnight in precinct offices across the country, some investigators still find themselves staring at those old case files, unable to turn away. In Los Angeles, there's the forgotten story of a young nurse who vanished after her night shift in 2002. Her car was discovered in a hospital parking garage, keys still in the ignition, purse untouched on the passenger seat. Surveillance cameras captured her walking toward the exit, but she never made it out. No grainy footage of her leaving, no sign of her in the stairwell, nothing but her reflection on a security monitor that flickered once and then went black. Detectives still argue over whether it was a technical glitch or something darker. Down in the Mississippi Delta, an entire fishing boat was found drifting with the motor idling, cooler full of beer, radio still playing country songs from a local station. The crew of 3 men, lifelong friends, were gone. Life jackets still hung on the hooks, untouched. Locals say on quiet nights, you can still hear the echo of laughter on the water. Investigators combed the riverbanks for weeks but recovered no bodies, no clues. Just a boat that seemed to float back with secrets it refused to spill. In a quiet Chicago suburb, an entire neighborhood remembers the night when every house on one street lost power for exactly 17 minutes. When the lights came back, a teenage girl was missing from her bedroom. Her window was locked from the inside, no footprints in the yard, no forced entry. The only sound recorded on a neighbor's baby monitor was a faint humming, like a low electrical charge, seconds before the blackout. The case still leaves hardened detectives unsettled, because none of them can explain what happened in that 17-minute void. And as these stories stack one upon another, investigators across the country admit something they rarely speak about in public, that some cases don't just remain unsolved, they feel untouchable, as though something larger keeps the truth just out of reach. Files gather dust, evidence boxes line forgotten shelves, and still the questions remain, whispering through the years, demanding answers that never come. Whispering until even the strongest investigators start to question whether they're chasing shadows or something far more dangerous. In the frozen outskirts of Alaska, a bush pilot radioed a distress call in 1997, his voice shaking as he described lights circling his plane. The transmission cut off mid-sentence. Hours later, his aircraft was found nose down in a snowbank, propellers still spinning. The strange part, the pilot was gone, seatbelt unlatched, door closed from the inside. Search crews scoured the tundra, yet not a single footprint marred the snow. His headset was left neatly on the seat, the radio still humming. In Boston, the case of the woman who vanished between two subway stops still rattles transit officers. Witnesses saw her board the train late at night, but when it pulled into the next station, she was gone. Security cameras showed her stepping onto the car, taking a seat, and then, nothing. No footage of her exiting, no trace in the tunnels, no sign of her ever being there except for her scarf, found folded on the empty seat where she had sat. Detectives replayed the tape until the static seemed to breathe. And deep in the bayous of Louisiana, a hunter stumbled out of the swamp, trembling, saying he'd followed lantern light for hours only to discover it wasn't a person at all but something moving ahead of him, just out of reach. When he finally made it back to town, his two hunting partners were missing, their rifles propped against a tree, campfires still burning. Locals whisper about will-o'-the-wisps, investigators chalked it up to misdirection, but the missing men were never found. Case after case, year after year, the unanswered questions pile higher. What truly happened in those missing minutes, those vanished miles, those locked rooms? And what keeps investigators awake at night is not just the lack of answers, but the gnawing suspicion that the truth might be more terrifying than anyone dares to imagine. Because when every logical explanation is stripped away, what remains is the silence, the kind of silence that feels alive, watching. In Oklahoma, a high school senior walked out of football practice one evening, waved goodbye to his friends, and started the short walk home. His backpack was later found on the sidewalk, unzipped, books scattered as if dropped in haste. A neighbor swore they saw him pass under the street lamp, but the next moment, he was gone. No cars, no footsteps, no sound. Just an empty street under the buzz of a flickering light. In Montana, an entire family's farmhouse was discovered with dinner plates still on the table, food half-eaten, and television humming in the corner. The front door was wide open, but the family was nowhere to be found. The clock on the wall had stopped at 9:17 p.m., yet power still ran through the house. Neighbors said the dogs barked wildly that night, then fell silent all at once. Investigators searched for weeks, but not a single trace of the family ever surfaced. And then there's the Florida case, where a diver exploring the underwater caves near the Gulf Coast disappeared inside a tunnel system he knew better than anyone. His oxygen tanks were recovered neatly placed at the entrance, untouched. No silt was disturbed, no signs of panic, as though he never entered at all. His friends waited for him on the shore as the sun went down, swearing they heard faint tapping sounds from beneath the water long after the search was called off. Each of these mysteries lingers like an open wound, etched into the memory of those who chased answers that never came. And as time passes, investigators begin to wonder if some cases are not meant to be solved, if the truth itself is hidden for a reason. A reason that seeps into their bones late at night when they reread the old reports and hear echoes that shouldn't be there. In Texas, a long-haul trucker vanished midway through his route on I-35. His rig was found parked neatly on the shoulder, engine idling, headlights still on, driver's door locked from the inside. The CB radio was crackling with static, and scrawled across his logbook in hurried handwriting were the words, "It's following me." No fingerprints other than his own. No tire tracks nearby. Just an 18-wheeler humming on the empty highway, miles from the nearest town. In Ohio, a small-town church became the center of a mystery when its bell tower began ringing on its own at 3 in the morning. Locals gathered to watch, but no one was inside. Weeks later, the young caretaker who lived on the property disappeared without a trace. His truck was still parked outside, his wallet and keys left on the kitchen counter. The only clue was a single page torn from a hymnal, left on the pew with the words circled in pen, "Deliver us from evil." And in Nevada, hikers stumbled upon a burned-out campfire in the desert, surrounded by 5 chairs. Each chair was occupied by a set of neatly folded clothes, shoes placed side by side, wallets tucked into the pockets. But no people. No footprints leading away. It was as if they had simply stood, shed their lives, and walked into the desert night. Investigators combed the dunes for weeks, but no bodies were ever found. Every time another case is added to the list, the question sharpens. Are these just accidents, disappearances, tragedies, or are they connected by something that law and logic cannot touch? And in that silence, in that gap between fact and fear, investigators feel the weight of something unfinished, pressing closer each year. Closer, like a shadow that lengthens no matter where the light falls. In Michigan, a teenager was last seen riding his bike home from a friend's house. The bike was discovered the next morning, lying neatly against a tree in the park, kickstand down as if parked with care. His backpack hung from the handlebars, zipped and untouched. Search teams combed the woods, calling his name until their voices broke, but the forest gave nothing back. To this day, his father still walks the same path at dusk, whispering into the trees. In Arizona, a retired sheriff followed up on a cold case from the 1970s, convinced he could find what everyone else had missed. He told his wife he'd be back before dinner. His pickup was later discovered on the edge of the desert, door open, thermos still warm with coffee. His notebook lay on the passenger seat, the last line scribbled in shaky letters, "It wasn't a man." The sheriff himself was never found. And in the Appalachian Mountains, campers reported hearing a woman's voice crying for help through the fog. When rangers followed the sound, they found an abandoned tent, food still cooking on a camp stove, a radio softly playing bluegrass. No footprints in the mud, no sign of a struggle. Just the voice, recorded faintly on one camper's phone, calling again and again until it faded into static. These moments stretch across the country like broken threads, tugging at anyone who dares to follow them. Some investigators whisper that the unanswered cases aren't random, that there's a rhythm to them, a pattern too unsettling to ignore. But the closer they look, the more the pieces refuse to fit, leaving behind only that heavy silence, the kind that feels like it's waiting. Waiting, as if the cases themselves are alive, drawing in anyone who dares to chase them. In Maine, a fisherman never returned from his early morning trip. His boat drifted back into harbor hours later, moving slowly with the tide. The engine was still running, coffee in a thermos still hot. But the deck was spotless, too spotless, nets coiled perfectly, hooks aligned, as though someone had carefully reset everything. Locals said he never kept his boat that neat. Investigators logged it as a missing person, but they admit off record that the scene felt staged, almost prepared for them. In Colorado, a young couple hiking a well-marked trail sent a final photo to friends, smiling at the summit, mountains wide behind them. They never came back down. Searchers found their phones, placed side by side on a rock, both powered off. Their footprints led a short distance down the trail, then stopped abruptly on a patch of solid ground. No disturbed soil, no alternate path, no trace of where they went. The photo remains their last word, a frozen moment that offers nothing but questions. And in rural Georgia, a farmer's family woke one night to the sound of their barn door slamming open. When the father rushed outside with a shotgun, he found the livestock penned and calm, nothing disturbed. But on the ground were dozens of small, barefoot prints circling the barn, pressed deep into the mud, stopping suddenly at the edge of the field. There were no prints leading in, and none leading out. The farmer himself disappeared a week later, leaving his family terrified to speak about it publicly. Each new mystery piles onto the others like bricks in a wall that stretches beyond sight, and yet there's always that same thread, the vanishing, the silence, the unexplainable gaps where logic refuses to live. And somewhere in those gaps, investigators feel the cold certainty that they are being led towards something vast, something they were never meant to uncover. Something that watches them as closely as they watch the files, breathing through the spaces between what is known and what is feared. In Kansas, a school bus full of children stalled one foggy morning on a rural road. When rescuers arrived less than 20 minutes later, the bus sat empty, doors open, headlights glowing against the mist. Lunchboxes were left on the seats, backpacks on the floor, even a teacher's clipboard still held the morning attendance list with every name checked. But not a single child or adult was ever found. The engine still hummed, the heater still blew warm air, as though they had all simply stepped off into nothing. In Oregon, a park ranger discovered a trail camera deep in the woods, ripped from its tree and left on the ground. When investigators recovered the footage, it showed hours of still forest, animals moving past as expected, until just before dawn. At that point, the trees seemed to bend, shapes flickered between the trunks, and the final frame caught the ranger himself, standing in front of the camera, wide-eyed, mouth open in terror. He never returned from his patrol. And in Illinois, residents of a small town recall the night the sirens wailed without cause. Police, fire, even the church bells all sounded at once, echoing through the streets. When the town gathered at the square to find out why, they discovered one family missing, house empty, beds unmade, dinner still warm on the stove. Their car remained in the driveway, doors unlocked. Every alarm system in the town reset at the exact same moment, 11:11 p.m. Across America, these stories cling to investigators like shadows they can't shake. The cases don't close, the questions don't fade, and the silence grows heavier. And in that silence, there is always the sense of something drawing nearer, as if all of these mysteries are pieces of a single puzzle, a puzzle no one is supposed to finish. But maybe that is the weight of these cases, their power lies not in the answers we never find, but in the questions that refuse to let go. Across decades and across states, investigators have come and gone, families have aged, and communities have learned to live with the unspoken. Still, the echoes remain. A light left on in Indiana. A scarf folded on a train seat in Boston. A fishing boat drifting in Mississippi waters. Each case, frozen in time, holding on to its silence. And perhaps that is why these mysteries endure. Because they are more than just files in a cabinet or names on a list. They are the moments when the ordinary breaks open and something unexplainable slips through. Moments that linger in the mind long after the search has ended, moments that turn into legends whispered under streetlights, around campfires, and across kitchen tables. For the investigators who lived inside these mysteries, the haunting never ends. Each clue, each photograph, each unanswered call carries the same loop: what really happened? And maybe the truth is that some stories are not meant to be solved, only carried, generation to generation, a reminder that America's quiet streets, empty fields, and dark waters all hold secrets that will never fully sleep.